All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to talk a little bit about understanding the concept of modes. Now, modes can be very, very, again, just like anything else, it can go on very, very deep. And I've got a masterclass that just talks about modes. It's just whatever, 8 hours of discussing modes. So modes can get really deep, but this is a music theory, the basics of music theory made easy, right? So I don't want to go way too deep into this, but I want you to understand the terminology. So if somebody comes across and says Dorian, you know what they're talking about. Okay, so basically, if you think about it this way, if we start with that major scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, okay? I'm going to tell you a little story here. It's not necessarily a true story, but you'll get the idea. So if we go way back in history and we take that major scale and we think about Gregorian chant, where all these men were singing and everybody was singing the same pitch. Everybody's going, oh, right? And everybody's singing the same pitch. Key doesn't make any difference. Key is just how high or how low you can sing, but the intervals are still the same because we're using the major scale. We're using do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, right? That we talked about. So these men are singing this, and they're all singing in unison, okay? And it doesn't matter whether they're in the key of G versus the key of A, it's still going to sound the same because the intervals are the same. It just might be a little higher or a little lower depending on your vocal range. So somewhere along the line, somebody had to go, okay, hold on a second. What if we were in the key of A, okay? But instead of emphasizing the note A, remember, I was in the key of A, I had the notes A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, right? So somebody said, instead of being in the key of A and emphasizing the note A, why not be in the key of A but emphasize a different note using the construct of the A major scale, the whole steps and half steps of the A major scale. But inside that major scale, instead of emphasizing the note A, what if we emphasized B or C sharp, meaning we are in that key? Now, what does emphasis mean? Emphasis means when I play something, if I go, your ear wants to come back to the sound of that A, okay? A is home base, if you will. It's where we want to go. We're going to go other places, but we're going to come back. That's emphasis. So, and again, I'm not trying to confuse you. I just want you to kind of understand the idea of a mode. A mode is saying we're going to live within the key of A. We're going to use all of the notes of the key of A. We're going to use all the chords, which we are going to get to. We're going to use all of the chords of the key of A. Okay, but instead of emphasizing the chord A, the note A, we're going to emphasize the B or the C sharp or the D or the E or the F sharp and so on. Does that make sense? Okay, so again, we might not have a practical application right now, but I want you to understand the theory of it. So if I took this A major scale, which we've been playing, okay, I could create a different mode out of this major scale. Now, there are two other major modes in music. There's what we call Lydian, and there's what we call Mixolydian. Okay? So Lydian, compared to the major scale, we're going to look at these as apples versus apples here. So when I'm playing, as I play that, and again, we already talked about the intervals, major second, major third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, major seventh, and then the octave, okay? If I was doing Lydian, what I need to do is I need to change one of those intervals. I'm going to change the fourth, the perfect fourth, to a sharp four. And I get Lydian. Lydian is a major scale with a raised fourth. So if we're comparing A major to A Lydian, and again, it's okay if you don't understand this yet. We're going to keep clearing this up as we keep learning more theory, okay? But if we're comparing apples to apples and we're comparing A major to A Lydian, the difference between the two is this raised fourth. Okay? Another major mode we have is called Mixolydian. And Mixolydian is the major scale, but with a minor seventh, with a flatted seventh. So we'd play the major scale, but instead of playing the major seventh, we'd play the minor seventh. We get a bit more of bit more of a bluesy sound by doing that, okay? So if we're comparing apples to apples, and again, as we learn our chords and all that kind of stuff, which is going to be coming up, I'm going to recap in modes again and put all this together for you in a context. But I just want you to show you right now that there's 3 different diatonic scales, so to speak, on the major side when we talk about modes. There's the major scale, which we often refer to as Ionian. From a modal perspective, we call the major scale Ionian. Again, kind of like an enharmonic. It's 2 different names for the same thing. You can say the major scale or you can say Ionian, and we're talking about the same thing. When you say Lydian, you're talking about a major scale, but with a raised 4th, a sharp 4. When you say Mixolydian, you're talking about a major scale, but with a flatted 7, a minor 7th. Okay, you're flatting that 7th. Okay, so that's the difference between those. And again, we're going to get further into this as we keep going. We just want to wet our feet in this a little bit to understand how this works. So next, we're going to look at the minor side of things and see how that works as well.